Well, hey there, folks. I'm meteorologist Matt Barrentine. I got Jennifer Lambers here as well. And of course, we are now tracking Hurricane Idalia. We just got in the latest 1 p.m. numbers. Jennifer?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so Idalia is continuing to strengthen. At this next advisory that was just received at 1 o'clock, those sustained winds, they're higher. They're at 90 miles per hour right now. Just a reminder, moving on the Saffir-Simpson scale, that is going to be 6 miles per hour shy of sustained winds, to keeping it from that Category 2 strength. So we're approaching closer towards there. Also, another thing that I noticed is the movement. It picked up a little bit of speed, and so right now tracking north at now 15 miles per hour. The faster the better.
The faster the better with this storm, because the longer it's out there over those open waters of the Gulf, the stronger it is going to get. Let's check out the path of the storm here, what we're looking at as it moves through time. And obviously a huge concern. We're expecting a major hurricane at landfall. And this coastline of Florida right here is called the Nature Coast. And it's called the Nature Coast because there's not a whole lot there. You never want to say this is a good spot for a strong storm to come in, but there's fewer communities here for this to impact. But the ones that are there are going to be extremely vulnerable. They're very low lying. They basically sit on the marsh. There's Cedar Key, Steinhatchee. We've got areas like Cross City, Perry, Florida. All these are going to be directly in the line of this, what's going to likely be a major hurricane, Jennifer.
That's exactly right. Expecting that to become the Category 3 hurricane, gaining more traction, speed, strength, heading into the overnight hours. We have warm Gulf waters out there, and so this is becoming a thriving environment for the system as it continues on that northerly track. Really keeping it on the east side there of Apalachicola. Here's a look at that 3D view. You can really start to see some of that bubbling effect going on, and even an eye wall trying to form at this time. We'll likely start to see that form once we get more of that strengthening that's beginning to on-go. And then just continuing on that track, pushing it further north, even continuing to bring increased rain chances closer towards Key West. We were checking in earlier with them, seeing some of their live cameras of the gusty winds that they're already seeing, the rough surf. As for us here locally, not quite seeing much in the way of impacts just yet, but we are expecting rip current risks to really start to go up heading into tomorrow. But there's a look at that radar view as it approaches closer towards the U.S. Fort Myers, Key West, really beginning to see some of those rain bands begin to impact the east or the west coast there of Florida.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and zoom us in because we're kind of getting the outer bands of the outer bands moving through right here. So, you know, these are kind of indirect, but they're part of the system on the outside of it. And we are seeing some working their way into the panhandle here of Florida and around Pensacola, Fort Walton Beach, now Orange Beach and Gulf Shore. So getting some squall lines going out here. So we're going to start seeing some of this. We'll get this today. Probably get a little bit of it tomorrow, the eastern part of our viewing area, mainly in the panhandle, but we're probably not going to see much else of rain out of this once the actual storm gets closer to making landfall. And I'll back this up and you can kind of see why here real quick. Look at the storm. Center of circulation is right about there. You notice all the rain is on this east side and very little rain is on the west side. So that's why when they make landfall off to our east, a lot of times we don't get a whole lot out of them.
That's exactly right. So the western flank of these systems, they typically see less of the impacts because of that counterclockwise rotation. That's why we always say we're on the better side of what is now Hurricane Idalia as it continues on that track. I see right now, Matt, you're looking at those water temperatures just where Idalia is expected to continue to move, upper 80s.
Yeah, that's rocket fuel. That's why we anticipate every hour it stays over the Gulf is a bad hour, because it's going to keep feeding on that. So the longer it stays over the open water, the stronger it'll get. It's going to be strengthening right through landfall, very similar to what Hurricane Michael did a few years back. It's going to just keep growing and strengthening right before landfall. So that's why that forward movement that Jennifer was talking about at 15 miles an hour is important. If we can keep the speed up, that'll be better as it could be for folks. The other thing we're really worried about is historic storm surge. This area of Florida, the whole west coast of Florida, this is the shallowest part of the Gulf of Mexico right here. It's called the West Florida Escarpment. That's where it's got like a cliff that goes down right here. That's deep water. This is very shallow. So now this storm is pushing all this water up through that shallow water. And this up here, this corner we call the Big Bend region of Florida, it's like a catcher's mitt. And it's going to catch all that storm surge. And just check this out, Jennifer. This is the numbers they're expecting here.
I was going to say, I think they even upgraded a little bit of the peak storm surge just around the Cedar Key area just within the past few hours. I think now it's up to 15 feet that they're expecting in that area. So, I mean, historic storm surge possible, dangerous storm surge, and just a reminder that this isn't just from where the water line meets at the beach that the feet goes back. Instead, you got to think about where you are at sea level and go ahead and add those numbers on top of it for what we mean with some of that peak storm surge. So these are very high numbers, getting well above the height of all of us once you move further inland. So it's important to be cautious with that.
Now, the communities that are along here, all their homes are built up on stilts. But still, you got waves on top of the storm surge, and you've got, of course, the wind. I mean, maybe 125-mile-per-hour winds, too. So this is going to be very destructive here as
Plus
it moves
debris
on. Yeah,
we've seen all that here on the Gulf Coast, so we know what to expect with some of that. But here's a look really at that enhanced satellite with the infrared there.
It's trying to form an eye right now.
It really is. Yeah, you can start to see some of that bubbling within the center.
Within the next few hours, we'll have an eye there as it continues to work its way north. And like I said, every minute it spins out over that open water there, that is going to mean a stronger and stronger storm. When it zooms down a little bit here, and you can see how trying to develop that eye. Like I said, probably within a couple of hours, we'll have an eye there. All right, we'll go ahead and run the Futurecast here for you. This is the European model. You can very well pick out the circulation. That's 8 o'clock tonight. I'm going to make this full screen so you can see it better if you're watching there on your phone. There it is at 8 o'clock tonight. We'll put it into motion and we'll stop it tomorrow morning as it makes or approaches landfall, but it should be right there. That's basically on top of Steenhatchee, Florida, a small fishing community. That's what we're looking at. 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Now look on the west side where we are tomorrow. We'll have these north winds. That's what we're going to be expecting, yes. So we're going to have rough surf and rip currents. We're not going to get a whole lot of rain out of this, as most of the rain is going to be dragged to the east and north with that storm there. It's 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So it's a fast mover. We're going to be talking about this thing on making landfall tomorrow morning. Tomorrow afternoon at this time that we're talking to you right now should be in Georgia.
That's exactly right. And then after that, potentially pushing out back into the Atlantic, heading into Thursday. I know some models have been a little crazy with what they expect after that. So just be cautious what you do see on social media. As of right now, really just expecting that to push back out into the Atlantic, hang out there, and continue to keep a tropical storm strength for quite a little bit. But we'll continue to monitor this storm as it continues to approach closer towards landfall. Again, at that last advisory that we just received at 1 o'clock, those sustained winds at 90 miles per hour, 6 miles per hour shy of those sustained winds from that Category 2 hurricane. So it is still strengthening. Quite a bit to go before it does get closer towards any of that land masses there on Florida, but still bringing some heavy rain to the west coast there, closer towards Fort Myers, Tampa, really that entire Florida peninsula on that side. Also, you have to keep in mind Key West, all the regions down there, Key Largo beginning to see more of those rain showers and thunderstorms. And then Matt's even zooming into the potential track and where it could see landfall heading into early tomorrow morning, just a little bit after sunrise. But even then, still bringing some of those impacts closer towards Gainesville, Tallahassee, up towards Valdosta, Jacksonville, Orlando. We'll even see some of those impacts as well before tracking closer towards Savannah, Charleston, and even Virginia up there, seeing some of the impacts from Idalia on this really Wednesday into Thursday. But continuing to keep a close eye on that. If you want to go to the, did you have something to say with this one? I was going to say, if you want to go to the depth graphic, I did get a question yesterday in my Facebook page, mainly just asking about with this system, is it going to churn up some of the water? Are we going to start to see some cooler water temperatures out there? But really, this just paints a better picture of where it's tracking to, that it's shallow water. So even deeper down there, it's not going to be cold conditions. So if it does turn up some of that water, we're still going to start to see some warm conditions out there. So not quite inhibiting any future development out there in the Gulf. We'll still see warm conditions. So heading into September, October, November, still have to be on high alert there in the Gulf.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So I know we don't get to talk a lot about bathymetry. That's what it's called, bathymetry. But it's a very important part of what happens when a storm is making landfall with the storm surge. Once again, this is just the most vulnerable area really in the entire Gulf for storm surge. And they don't get storms there very often. They have to kind of come up in a unique way. Remember, this one's coming up directly north from the Yucatan. So it's just bad luck for them, and they're going to be dealing with a historic storm surge out of the system. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Those were the 1 o'clock numbers with Hurricane Idalia. We'll have more on this, obviously, as we go throughout the day. Go ahead and show one more time the Futurecast for today, for our area, I'm not thinking that we're going to get a whole lot of rain here locally, but we are seeing some outer bands of the outer bands coming on in here. Let me get to the...
Yes, in case you guys are joining us on the Facebook Live, we did have some questions here. So Kim, Nicole, we're going to go ahead and show that Futurecast. Heading into today, still some increased rain chances heading into this afternoon and this evening. Mainly that isolated to scattered look. Do just be cautious that if you see any of these showers or thunderstorms, pretty much what we've been seeing for the past few days, the heavy downpours, frequent lightning. That's really been the talk for some of these storms that we've been seeing, is the bright flashes and constant flashes. So that is all still possible heading into today, mainly just some of that dry air still across the Gulf Coast. With some of these storms could be a bit on the stronger side in terms of that lightning and some of those downpours. But there's a look at your Futurecast heading into this afternoon and this evening. Be cautious of that evening commute.
Yeah, these will be some quick squally showers. We were talking about these a minute ago. These are the outer bands of the outer bands. So they're not like directly from the storm, but they're kind of interacting with it, and that's why we're seeing these showers out there this afternoon. I think tomorrow we get less rain than this, so we're not going to get a whole lot out of this. Obviously, folks to our east will get more than they want out of this, but for us, tomorrow we will have a north wind, and we are unlikely to see a whole lot of rain around here. You might see one or two squalls in the morning over around Destin or something like that, but for the most part, it'll be a dry day. So got a few storms going this afternoon. I get the concern, my kid's going to be able to go out and play their soccer practice today. We'll have to wait and see how this thunderstorms shape up, but there will be some rain around throughout the day today. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm meteorologist Matt Barrentine.
Jennifer Lambers.
All right, thank you so much, folks. Have yourselves a wonderful day. We'll have more updates today on 4 and 5 o'clock here on Fox 10.